Now, the American President Donald Trump and the Russian President Vladimir Putin are all set to meet in Alaska on the 15th of August. Trump made the announcement on his Truth Social post, and this was later confirmed by the Kremlin spokesperson, who called the choice of location quite logical. The decision to host the much-anticipated meeting in Alaska has put the spotlight on the U.S. state and also its significance for both sides. Now, according to reports, Alaska was chosen as the preferred meeting point due to its proximity to Russia, with the Bering Strait separating the two by just 90 kilometers. The Bering Strait holds some significant economic interest for both countries, as this is the gateway to the Arctic, which is rich in minerals. In recent times, both Russia and the United States have ramped up efforts to increase their presence in the Arctic region. The region is not only rich in natural resources, gold, fur, fisheries and petroleum, but it also serves as a potential trade gateway to East Asia. The choice of Alaska as the meeting venue is also notable, given the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin, which would obligate member states to detain him. However, it must be pointed out that the United States of America is not a party to the ICC and does not recognize the International Criminal Court's jurisdiction, meaning that it is under no obligation to arrest Putin when he's on US soil. The two sides had earlier spoken of Dubai as a possible venue. Trump had asked Italy to organize a meeting with Putin in Rome or in the Vatican. But Italy, as a party to the Rome Statute, is obliged to arrest Putin under the ICC warrant and was reportedly under diplomatic pressure. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Mr. Mikael Walterson, who's joining us from Stockholm in Sweden. He's a military and a political analyst and a former officer of the Swedish Army. Now, Mr. Walterson, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. And let me in fact start off by asking you this meeting that is to happen between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin that is slated to be held in Alaska. In your assessment, do you think the two leaders can in fact strike a deal that could potentially bring an end to the Ukraine war?
Well, they can at least strike a deal. If it's going to end the war, it's hard to say, because Ukraine is also an important part in the war. But I believe that Putin and Trump will do their utmost to get an agreement between them. And then they're going to try to force Zelensky and Ukraine to accept it. And Putin likes this situation, because then it puts very much pressure on the Ukraine.
All right, you're saying that the two leaders will agree on something and then they'll force the Ukrainian president to agree. Just to point out, the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, has already said that any agreement that wants or expects that Ukraine should cede territory will not be acceptable to Ukraine. How do you see that statement by the Ukrainian president?
Well, the entire war goal of Ukraine is to keep all the territory. And he's claiming that the constitution prohibits Ukraine to leave any territory. But the constitution said that Ukraine would be neutral, and then they changed the constitution. So they can always change the constitution. But it's an attempt to derail an agreement.
All right, do continue to stay on with this, because I want you to weigh in on another crucial aspect that will be a part of these talks. Because the American President Donald Trump and the Russian President Vladimir Putin are set to meet in Alaska on the 15th of August to discuss a potential ceasefire in the Ukraine war. But the truce in Ukraine is fraught with challenges, and there are several sticking points that are holding back a potential peace deal. Ahead of the meeting, Putin's aide, Yuri Ushakov, had warned of several challenges, and according to Ushakov, Russia and Ukraine will be discussing ways to reach sustainable settlement to the Ukrainian crisis and to work on practical and political parameters of the Alaska summit. He warned while the process won't be simple, Russia will engage in it actively and consistently. Now, despite multiple attempts to negotiate a truce in Ukraine, talks have been derailed. Now, there are several sticking points, and these include the recognition of the territories that are already occupied by Russia since the beginning of this war in 2022. So far, Russia claims control over 5 regions: Crimea, that it occupied in 2014. It has occupied parts of Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia. But Ukraine has refused to formally cede these to Russia. Now, another key sticking point is going to be Ukraine's bid for NATO membership. Now, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has made it pretty clear that Ukraine cannot be a part of the NATO military alliance under any circumstance. Now, Russia also objects to Ukraine seeking security guarantees by the United States and weapons transfer by Western nations. However, Ukraine insists that it has a right to defend itself and to choose its allies. Now, these issues are likely to come up for discussion as Trump and Putin hold talks in Alaska next week. But the big question, of course, is, will Russia or Ukraine agree to make any concessions? Because that alone will decide whether this summit turns out to be a historic moment or a breaking point for Ukraine. Now, Mr. Waltonson, this is going to be a very difficult sort of a negotiation to happen. It is going to happen between the Russian president and the American president. The Ukrainian president is not going to be a part of the talk. So any agreement that is struck by these two leaders, do you think that would be acceptable to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and will it be acceptable to the Ukrainian people?
Well, it's very hard to see an agreement that's agreeable to Ukraine and Zelensky, because in advance they have said that they will not cede any territory. And they can't back down from that, because if they do that, it will be a very big lose of face for Zelensky. And we have heard a lot of rumors about the swapping of territories. And the main thing that's I believe that it's possible is that Russia demands that Ukraine will leave the western part of the Donetsk region, and they will get back territories that Russia occupies outside these 5 regions that they claim. But that's rather unimportant territory besides the area around Kupiansk in the Kharkov region.
Right.
And if Russia gets these areas, it's a number of at least rather large cities which are very well fortified. So it would be a great gain for Russia. It would probably take them 1 year to take these cities, and it would cost a lot. So they could accept a ceasefire on that
on those grounds.
If they get those parts. Yes.
Right. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Walterson, for joining us and getting us that perspective there, because at this moment no one quite clearly knows as to what is the proposal that the Americans are putting on the table in Alaska. We need to wait and watch out for as to how that summit between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump unfolds. Thank you very much, Mr. Walterson, for joining us from Stockholm, Sweden.
Thank you for having me.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.